Hmm. Hold on, let me put this on pause.
We have 5.
All righty. Well, I am Counselor Andra Ingalls. I'm serving as the Chair Pro Tem tonight in Linda Davis's absence, and I'm calling this regular meeting of the Ledyard Town Council to order. Roxanne, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis? Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mrs. Evans?
Here.
Mrs. Ingalls?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan?
She's on mute.
Here.
Oh, Mary.
Okay, we know she's here. Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Soms? Mr. Washington? 6 here, 3 absent.
Okay, thank you. There are no presentations tonight. Do any resident or property owners wish to speak? I see Ann Holland's hand. Go ahead, Miss Holland.
I actually, I reside at 824 Colonel Ledyard Highway. Is that what I need to say in the beginning? I'm not sure.
Yes, please. Thank
Yes.
And I didn't really have anything written down or planned to say today, except that I'd like to bring something to the attention of Town Council. And from my understanding of how those that are represented, how you are representing people and yourselves and what you're saying is confusing to me because I see your guys' actions a little differently. And so my questions are kind of regarding things that are going on in this town that nobody's talking about. And I need somebody to address it for me because it's like this thing that you're not supposed to talk about or something, like everyone's afraid to talk about it and it's driving me insane, okay? Because it's so common sense to be like equity, equality, and all, you know, this is how we see people, but that's not what I'm seeing you guys do. I'm not seeing any empathy. I'm not seeing any compassion. I'm not seeing anybody reaching out. I'm not seeing any discussions. I'm not seeing anything like that. And as a resident, not just whatever party you want to call me, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm progressive and I'm unaffiliated. And I want somebody in my town that's representing us. And I'm sure there's a lot of people similar to me in this town that needs to feel safe, feel welcoming. And it's not just who the majority of this town, who the occupants are and who's been here for, you know, their parents and their grandparents. It's driving me nuts that you can't even acknowledge or recognize things. And you guys just kind of brush it under the rug. And I'm not understanding how I'm supposed to vote, how we are supposed to vote right now. And there's 1 week left and it's just seeming like it's not a big deal with certain things. There is a white woman that resides on a social services board that you, Mayor Fred, have put in place that is attacking. And I have evidence and proof of this if you would just reach out or allow me to show you of what she is doing, because it's insane. The defund the police, it's insane. Your fear mongering, it's insane. I can't sit here and keep acting like nothing's going on at the wonderful things that this town has to offer, these events. It's to almost keep us quiet and distracted from what the heck is going on. Stop. It's ridiculous. Where's the pride acknowledgement? Where's LGBTQ? Where is that? Nowhere. Where's Black folk and acknowledgement that they're dying by police? Not all police. We know that. But where's the acknowledgement? It's nothing like that. It's, oh, the juveniles are committing crimes. Let's get more cops. No, fix the problem. Not give more policing and punishment. It's fix the problem. Why are juveniles out? Because you guys are paying so much attention to who has the vote. And that's the elderly people and these senior citizens and everything. They have the vote. And that's why you devalue our children, because you're not putting them first and saying, oh, let's incorporate them into the punishment system.
Ms. Holland, I'm not sure what's going on. I can't hear you anymore, and I don't even know if anyone can hear me.
Right, I can hear you, Andra, but we can't hear Ann.
Okay, I'm
Ms.
not
Poundland, this is all we have to vote from.
sure what's going on.
You're not sure what's going on? Do you pay attention?
You cut out, Ann.
You froze up,
You
Ann,
froze up,
actually. You
Ann.
froze
We
up.
did not hear you.
The last like 30 seconds or so of what you said was not heard. It went mute. That's what I mean by I don't know what's going on. There was a technical glitch. That is what I don't know what's going on.
Oh, okay,
So I'm gonna ask, so we typically limit comments to 3.
I understand.
So your comments will be part of the public record.
Wonderful.
And if you mentioned that there's something that you'd like to speak with the mayor about, I'd encourage you to reach out to him with whatever information you have, and let's work on getting you answers to your questions.
Well, I just want to know that you guys are all aware of what I'm talking about when I say somebody sits on the Board of Ed that's attacking Black people in this town. Or I mean, sits on the Youth and Social Services Board. You know exactly who I'm talking about in that situation.
I don't know what you're talking about,
You
but I'm
don't?
gonna let you, so that board is under the mayor's jurisdiction, not the jurisdiction of the council. So I'm gonna direct you to talk with the mayor.
Then I'll talk about that after, but my other point was directed for the rest of the council, and the 3 others that couldn't be here was for the behavior that's taking place in this town on behalf of the party that you represent is lying and despicable.
Okay, Ms. Holland, your comment time is over, so we're going to move on. Are there any other resident and property owners who wish to speak? Okay, moving on to committee, commission.
Dave
and-
Holdridge.
Dave Holdridge had his hand up.
I'm so sorry, wait a minute. Who?
Dave Holdridge.
Dave,
Oh, Mr. Holdridge, go right ahead.
Yes, this is Dave Holdridge, 29 Churchill Road. I just wanted to say a quick word about one of the items that's on your agenda tonight, which is the application for grant for continuing work on the Tri-Town Trail. And I saw in the mayor's memo that he is making a suggestion about how we could pay the 20% matching fund that's required locally. And I agree with his recommendation that it could be done by the building of the parking lots by Eversource at the trailhead and also at the Red Barn on the Clark Farm. But there are backup, if that doesn't work out for some reason, there are ways that we could back that up. The Tri-Town Trail Association is willing to put up money that we have raised through private contributions. Also, there's money that in-kind services by volunteers. We have documented hundreds of hours of volunteers already in working on the trail with equipment. And the accepted rate for that is $27 an hour. And so that's something that we could put forward as a matching fund if the Eversource thing doesn't work out. Also, by the way, in our last grant, we had the time of the town planner being the administrator of the grant, we allocated, or we said that $3,000 of his time could be used towards the matching. This time, Scott Johnson is going to be administering the grant, the Director of Public of Parks and Rec. And so we could do that again, allocating $3,000 of his time. Another thing that is possible is the town council could designate additional monies from the open space fund, or we could get money from the Parks and Recreation Capital and Non-Recurring Fund. The PNR Commission has discussed this and has said that they would like to contribute to the support of the trail. So we hope that those things are not necessary about the Parks and Rec Fund or the Open Space Fund, but just saying that if the Eversource funding does not work out, we have a plan B, plan C, plan D, and I think that you can rest assured that there probably will not be a need for the council to appropriate money from the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holdridge. Are there any more resident and property owners who wish to speak? Okay, moving on to committee, commission, and board reports.
Yeah, if I may, Ms. Ingles.
Go right ahead. You have the floor, Mr. Woody.
Thank you. Nate Woody, Chair of Planning and Zoning Commission. 2 items. So the first item is I just wanted to let the council be aware that at our November 18th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission will be considering a 6-month moratorium on cannabis establishments. I wanted to make sure that it was clear that a moratorium is not a ban. Those are 2 different things. And a moratorium is essentially a temporary prohibition on the establishment of those types of businesses. And the primary reason is we're waiting to get all of the rulemaking completed by the state of Connecticut and get that in our hands so that we understand all of the rules before we make any action in a regulatory fashion. The statute essentially tells the Planning and Zoning Commission to add cannabis establishments to the zoning regulations, at least to have it as a use. And so before we do that, we just want to make sure that we have all the rules in hand. And so that's why we're going to be considering a 6-month moratorium on those establishments. And again, that'll be at our November 18th meeting, 7 p.m. And I point the date out a second time because that's actually the 3rd Thursday. It's an unusual Thursday for us. So I don't want people to get the wrong date. The second item I just wanted to point out, I'm sure everyone knows this, but Ms. Dobson, the land use assistant in the land use office, will be retiring soon. She has been a excellent employee for years. She has helped me untold times at inopportune times in order to get things done for the commission. And so I just wanted to publicly thank her for all the work that she's done and say that we will miss her in that role. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Woody. Any other commission and board reports? Seeing none, let's move on to comments of town councilors. I see John. Mr. Marshall.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to wish everyone present and unaccounted for the best of luck next week in the upcoming election. Hope everyone does well.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Any other comments of town councilors? Moving on to review and approval of minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of October 13th, 2021?
So move,
Move.
Councilor Dombrowski.
Second, John.
Any comments, edits? Roxanne, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Communications are all in the portal. I don't have any referrals, so we'll move on to the council subcommittee and liaison reports. Admin,
The administration committee has not met since the last town council meeting.
thank you, Ms. McGrattan. Community relations. Actually, community relations has not met and the other 2 committee members are not here. Finance, Mr. Ryan is. I
Yes,
believe,
so,
report provided by Counselor Soms. Sorry,
right.
stole your
Oh, no.
thunder. Go for it.
That's okay. I was going to say exactly that. So yes, I just for clarity, I was absent at the last finance committee meeting. So I am reading the report that was provided by Bill Soms from Counselor Soms from the committee meeting. The Town Council Finance Committee held its regular meeting on Wednesday, October 20th at 5 p.m. by video conference. The committee continued to discuss the ARPA funding project list and suggested adding 2 columns. One to indicate whether the project should be added to the CIP and one to identify each project's priority. The committee also discussed decision process, including the separation of the projects into what should be started before next year's budget process, what to include in the budget process for voting by the public, when to seek public input for all projects, and a review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The committee will continue the discussion at its next meeting. The committee briefly discussed the fire apparatus replacement plan, noting that deliberations are complete for now, and that the goal of having the conversation early was to inform the council regarding the upcoming replacement needs of both departments, the challenges in combining the vehicles to serve multiple purposes, and to prepare the council with advanced knowledge of these issues in advance of the FY 22 to 23 budget season. The committee will remove the topic from its agenda until it begins budget preparation, which starts in mid-November with the budget letter of directive. The Finance Committee also reviewed a first draft of the Town of Ledyard policy for capital improvement projects and checklist, and agreed to continue the discussion after the Finance Director and the Town Council Administrative Assistant have an opportunity to review and combine suggested changes to the draft document. The policy is being developed to ensure that all departments in both the general government and the Board of Education are aware of the proper steps to take when implementing a new capital project under 3 different conditions. 1, when the project is paid for with existing funds. 2, when the project is paid for with grant funding. And 3, when the project is paid for with bond funding. Other than that, everything else is on the agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Any questions for finance? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to land use.
Land use has not met since our last meeting. I have no report.
Thank you. And any liaison reports? Ms. McGrattan?
Okay, Bill Soms, who is not here this evening, is the liaison to the Historic District Commission, and he asked me to read the latest report. The Historic District Commission met at 7 o'clock on Monday, October 18th. The Ledyard Sawmill is up and running for visitors on Saturdays into November. Millwrights were able to resolve a problem when the mill stopped running with the help of a Navy diver, Chris Cobb, who found that the gate which diverts the water to run the mill had fallen off. He also found not one, but 2 gates. The previous one has suffered the same fate. The mill operators are grateful for the talent we have here in Ledyard. The Nathan Lester House held a fall festival with tours in replacement of the traditional old-fashioned July 4th weekend. And the Ledyard Cub Scout Pack 16 camped out on the property the weekend of September the 25th. Alex Whittle is working on his Eagle Scout project, which is a combination of a bike/hike trail, bike accessible bridge, and a bike stand for mountain bikes of all sizes. The commission is working on the design of a historic building sign that will be made for owners of historic homes, and it will cost $85. The goal is to have a standard format for historic plaques on buildings throughout Ledyard. Prototypes will be installed on 2 one-room schoolhouses, one in Ledyard and one in Gales Ferry. The commission may be able to help owners of historic homes with research on the history of their home. That's the end of the report from Bill Soms.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any other liaison reports? Seeing none, let's move on to the report of the mayor.
Good evening. So as Chairman Woody from PZC suggested, Deb Dobson is retiring. Her last day is with us is actually November 1st. So we're actively looking for a replacement, but Deb did a lot of work for the Planning and Zoning and Building Department as a whole, and also provided support to various staff. So we're hoping that we can get somebody that's as capable as Deb to get that role filled. Also, I wanted to report to you, Groton Utilities did a tank, a Ledyard Center water tank. They did an inspection of that tank. It was something that over the last 2 budget cycles I have asked about the status of the paint need for the water tank. They did a surface one using a drone, and the top of the tank exterior needs paint, but the more important was the inside, the interior lining of the tank. they did get to do that, and it too needs to be sealed and painted internally. I can imagine that's a very substantial job. So they are working on trying to identify the anticipated cost of that. The other issue is that they will have to draw that tank down completely to be able to paint the interior. So they have to have a system basically in place that would provide the pressure that that tank does. So they'd have like a tractor trailer sized unit that would sit next to that to provide the bypass of the water. So it'll be an interesting process, but it's something that's got to be done. We've got to care for these assets as they weather. On the COVID front, we had 32 new cases in the last 2 weeks. As you can imagine, a number of them are school-based. There are very, very few hospitalizations, 23 New London County right now, out of a population of 268,555, not too bad. The Ledyard Health District data continued to decline 4 weeks running now, 128 cases as of yesterday. So that's very positive. Vaccination has bumped up a little bit in town, 64.39%. That's about a week old now. That's the 4th highest in southeastern Connecticut. We did a GovDeals sale, so surplus sale. We sold a bunch of different things. I was able to provide the service for the Board of Education too, hoping that they would also embrace that platform for selling surplus and being able to get the most dollar value back for our assets as possible. So that sale went very, very well. We actually had sales as far as Puerto Rico, North Carolina, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Vermont, and Maine. So it was a very, very strong sale. Ended up selling a boat to Puerto Rico that the Board of Ed had in their building down there since 2005. So that's done and converted back into liquidity, which is great. I also would congratulate firefighter Nick Bozum. He was awarded the Firefighter of the Year at a dinner on October 22nd. I provided a mayoral proclamation for Nick, as well as one for Chief Saccone for his 20 years of service to the town, and he continues for the town. So huge kudos for both of them. As you can imagine, the first nor'easter of the year hit us today. We had at the peak, we had just over 400 outages. It has dropped back to about 55 outages, which were on Woodbridge and Kennedy Drive, and then a bunch of singles here and there. And we had our highest wind gust was about 55 miles an hour. So it didn't approach the 70 that the state had suggested, thankfully, but it still did some damage and had some trees on wires causing issues. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you is our pension funding. This is something that we're always looking at, always working on, and the retirement board always works on determining how much money they need to add to the pension fund to make sure that we are fully funded. So we had private actuaries do an update for us. So this provides us a more real-time snapshot of where we stand on the pension. And the really great news is that they have us funded at 100.3%, which is really incredible. Using the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, as you've probably heard, GASB has us at 87.5%. So the two numbers do vary a little bit. I mean, actually a pretty significant amount, but what I would tell you is the real-time data that comes in from the actuaries blows away the GASB information that's a little bit more stale. So I think we're in really, really good shape on that, great shape going into this coming budget year. And as numbers continue to change on that, I will keep you apprised. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Okay, seeing none. There's nothing on the agenda under old business, new business. Would anyone like to amend the consent calendar? Seeing no one, Roxanne, will you call the roll?
No, we need someone to move it.
Oh, sorry.
I'll
Thank
move
you.
the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roxanne,
Yes. Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Motion carries. Admin.
I make a motion to appoint Catherine Milde, MILDE, a Democrat, 185 Spicer Hill Road, to the Senior Citizens Commission to complete a 2-year term ending December the 9th, 2022, to fill a vacancy left by Mr. Gary K. Harding.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, discussion? Roxanne, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next item. Ms.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. George Hosey, unaffiliated, of 2 Lucian Way, to the Permanent Municipal Building Committee to complete a 3-year term ending March 26, 2024, filling a vacancy left by Mr. Shuttleworth.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, discussion?
Mr. Hosey came forward and said he was interested in being on that committee.
Thank you. Roxanne, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Thank you. So we'll move on to finance. Mr. Ryan, would you make the motion under finance, please?
Absolutely. I move to authorize the mayor to submit a Connecticut recreational trail grant for the planning and design work for the Tri-Town Trail in the amount of up to $140,000. In addition, authorize the town to provide a 20% local funding match. Funding source to be determined contingent upon the approval of the grant application.
I'll go ahead and second that. And Mayor, well, actually, Scott Johnson, you're here. Are you here to talk about that?
Yeah, I can, I guess, talk a little bit about it.
Thank you.
The mayor can probably go a little further into it than me, because I think he's been, in contact, him and Juliet. I think the grant's going to be for planning, as well as construction. And I think the hope is to use Eversource's installing 2 parking lots, one at the Red Barn and one at the Trailhead. Hopefully we can use that as the matching portion, I believe, as Dave Holdridge mentioned earlier.
Very good. Mayor, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can add a little bit more to it. So it was kind of a late arrival grant. On October 14th, we had a meeting with the director of planning as well as Tri-Town Trail representative. And this grant came forward. It's up to $140,000, 20% match. We have, as Mr. Holdridge alluded to, we have multiple options that we can go to for the match. And the Tri-Town Trail Committee will go in halves if we need to, if it ultimately needs to be a cash match. I would just also point out that, as Scott Johnson just said too, it's not just for planning and design, but it also includes corridor acquisition. So we could use monies to purchase easement areas. It is to be used for construction administration, and maintenance equipment. So there's a lot of options there. I think one of the things that is kind of important to me on this is that I would like to see where the trail is going. In other words, I would like to see that we have ironclad agreements, if you will, from property owners that we will be getting easements for the trail Because what I don't want to see happen is I don't want a design and engineering firm to spend a whole bunch of money doing design and engineering on property that we can't get through. So given that this is $140,000 in terms of construction and construction administration and maintenance equipment, this could be a really big win for the Tri-Town Trail. But like I said, we just need to be cautious that before I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and make sure that we actually have easements that we can negotiate and pay for without doing a bunch of design and engineering work on properties that we may not be able to get on. So that was all I had to add to that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, Roxanne, will you call the roll?
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
You're muted,
Mr.
Tim.
Ryan,
Tim, can you hear us?
Sorry, yes, yes,
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
yes,
Mrs. Engel.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next items under general items. Counselor Dombrowski, would you make that motion?
Certainly.
Thank
I make a motion to approve a proposed authorization resolution of the Ledyard Town Council, State of Connecticut, Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, as contained in the draft dated October 25th, 2021. In addition, authorize the mayor to sign an FFY 2022 State Homeland Security Grant Program Region 4 Memorandum of Agreement.
And can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. So we have Jim Mann is here to talk about this grant. This is a grant we do every year, and he can share a little bit more about that.
Yes, this is a grant we've done every year. And what it basically entails is that we will share assets that we are given by Region 4, like our light tap or signboards that we got last year, with other towns in Region 4. It's a good deal because it doesn't cost the town a penny, and there's other stuff we can actually obtain. Not a bad deal.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mann. Any questions or comments before we vote? Seeing none, Roxanne, will you call the vote? Call the roll.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
yes,
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
yes,
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Motion carries. And Counselor.
Thank you, folks. I'm going to eat dinner. A
Thank you, Jim.
long day and night.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Counselor Dombrowski, will you take the next item?
Sure. I make a motion to name the food pantry building the Linda C. Davis Food Pantry.
second, Counselor Ryan,
Mayor.
Yeah, so thank you. So as you know, Chairman Davis has been a huge advocate and supporter of the Ledyard Food Pantry, even dating back to the time when the Ledyard Congregational Church had it. I think it was about 2015, and Dave, you could probably help there if I'm wrong, but about 2015 is when the pantry moved into the former town hall, the small white building to the left of the Congregational Church there in Ledyard Center. And at that time, there was a need for volunteers, and Linda put out a request for volunteers through social media, and I think had about 50 volunteers in a matter of 2 days. But her work didn't end there. We've obviously expanded the operation, and as the Congregational Church can attest to, it grew and grew and grew. And it grew because Linda continued to foster relationships with various grocery stores and outlets that would provide food, and the food kept coming, and in many ways, there was more than we could handle, which was a great problem to have. So the food would be shared to the Montville pantry and the Norwich pantry. So it ended up being a really great relationship. And she continues to do so. I mean, a lot of the processes that are in place in the pantry now are a testament to what she's done. So I think it would be a very nice gesture to allow us to place a name placard on the building on behalf of Linda's efforts.
Thank you, Mayor. Would any other councilors like to comment on this motion?
Apropos.
Agree. I am not sure I know anyone who has given more of themselves to the pantry and really to the town than Linda. This is very appropriate. Any other comments? Roxanne?
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Evans,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
Yes.
6 in favor, 0 opposed.
And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.